And from our Caitlin Polans, who has been reporting on the possible indictment of John Bolton, the former national security advisor for President Trump in his first term. Caitlin, what do we know?
Casey, John Bolton, the former national security advisor to Donald Trump, a longtime federal government official, has been indicted by a grand jury. We are learning that through two different sources from our producer, Hannah Rabinowitz at the Justice Department. And we have confirmed that the grand jury was in today with the lead prosecutor on that case, the same prosecutor who had been on some of the documents of the search of Bolton's house just 2 months ago, or not even 2 months ago, a prosecutor who also has some experience in investigating these sorts of things. He was a prosecutor that was also working on the Biden classified documents handling investigation that led to no charges. But in this situation, the bulk of this case, it's been going on for several years, and our understanding is that it's about John Bolton's use of an email account with AOL, an email account where he was writing diary-like notes and summaries of his time as national security advisor to himself, at times even sending them to his wife and daughter. And that is the sort of thing that the Justice Department does say frequently, not just in the climate of a Trump administration, that that's something that you should not do. We have seen many charges like this before of other high-ranking officials, and that also with John Bolton in those search warrants, and what we're very likely to see in court going forward is that the Justice Department saying he should have known better.
Just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
The case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person. Okay, anybody else?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So, once again, we got to talk about a Democrat or a never Trumper finding out the hard way that nobody is above the law, okay? And this time, this story, this bombshell indictment is featuring John Bolton, okay, who got in his Hillary Clinton bag, okay, when it comes to mishandling classified information, okay? Something that, he criticized President Trump very heavily for when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, okay? John Bolton was one of these people that was cheerleading it, right? And, what comes around goes around.
Well, I think it's a devastating indictment. It's very powerful in the way that it's portrayed, but it's also very narrow, very targeted. The government didn't throw everything in the kitchen sink at the wall. It has focused this in a way that I think, as a matter of law, is going to be very difficult for the president to resist. I think the real question is the question of timing and scheduling. If Donald Trump were an honest man, if he were an innocent man, he'd be saying, I want the trial within 30 days. I want this cloud removed from over my head. I want this stain on my reputation removed. So we'll wait and see what Donald Trump does. I think he'll try and postpone it to after the 2024 election. So my suggestion to Jack Smith and the Justice Department is go lean on the Manhattan District Attorney and get him to move his trial until after the election. This trial should take precedence. We'll find out whether Alvin Bragg is a real prosecutor or a political hack. The answer to their complaint about a double standard, the question they should be asked is, even though Biden has escaped scot-free, Clinton has escaped scot-free, fill in the blank has escaped scot-free, is the answer to the double standard to let Donald Trump escape scot-free? Is the answer to the double standard to revert to no standard at all? I think that's wrong.
Classified information, we're going to see if he comes out and says that, hey, we need a trial within 30 days, right? Hey, John Bolton, if you're innocent, you got to prove it, right? Quick, fast, in a hurry. Don't need to try to delay it. Don't try to delay it till after Trump's out of office, right? Go ahead and let's get it over with now, right? You ready? I'm pretty sure that John Bolton is ready to defend himself right now in court because according to him, if he's innocent, then again, he should be ready to go to trial, right? This is the standard that he applied to President Trump. Again, we're going to see. Now, again, the fascinating part about this indictment against John Bolton is that the mainstream level media is not even trying to pretend as if this one isn't legit, right? They try to pretend like the one against Letitia James is not legit, and it's like it's 100% legit. But for this one, they can't even deny that it's not legit because it's pretty obvious that the dude committed a crime Okay, and also on top of that, the fact that his house was raided also in and of itself means that, hey, there was at least a judge that thought that there was probable cause enough to raid this guy's house, okay, which also supports this indictment, right? The strength behind the charges that John Bolton is currently facing. So without further ado, let's react to NBC drop this bombshell here on their audience about how, yeah, it's not looking good for John Bolton here in this indictment.
From the search warrant, we've gotten some information about what this investigation was about. It was about a 2020 book pre-publication review that was under review by obviously people in the State Department and other bodies, and a hack of Bolton's AOL account by foreign entities. What more do we know from that?
Yeah, we should help people understand. John Bolton has been under investigation for multiple different administrations, right? He was investigated first dating back to Bill Barr under the first Trump administration. That investigation continued into the Biden administration, and then the Biden DOJ dropped it. Now, what exactly the charges is, we're going to have to wait and see the charging papers. Yeah. Peter has obviously reported that the grand jury has returned that indictment, which is significant. We should also note the difference here between the indictments of other Trump foes, like Letitia James and former FBI Director James Comey. Here, there was a raid on his home, on his office. That means that there was probable cause that a judge found, an independent judge found, that a probable cause that a crime had been committed. You can't get a search warrant like that. You can't carry out boxes and documents and take someone's phone without probable cause. So that's a difference.
Yeah, so what I find to be so funny about this, right, is that the liberal media told us that, hey, you know, a grand jury indictment is enough, right? It's enough to suggest that, you know, there is reasons to believe a crime was committed. Now, that standard went away when Comey and Letitia James got indicted, right? That standard went away, right? Apparently, you can indict a ham sandwich. Now, again, none of this applied to President Trump, right? None of these people say, you know, hey, it's not a very high standard to try to indict a guy, right? If you really want to go after somebody, it's not a very high standard. But now, with John Bolton, because, again, an independent judge signed off on his raid, they can't even come out here with a straight face and deny that, you know, this was legitimate, right? This is not necessarily retribution. Like, this is actually just holding people accountable, right? Like, this is John Bolton finding out that he is, in fact, not above the law, okay? Which is something that he agreed with. He agreed that nobody's above the law when Trump was facing the same thing.
Difference between these cases that we should know.
And that this investigation started in the first Trump administration. Yeah. The Biden administration then looked into this, dropped this, and then it was reopened in the second Trump term.
And the question is, what did they find to reopen that investigation? And perhaps this isn't related to the book.
Well, easy. They found the same stuff that Biden found, right? Biden's DOJ, they found the same stuff. Biden's DOJ just decided, you know what? John Bolton's a useful never Trumper, right? Republican. Hey, yeah, we're going to let him slide, right? We're going to continue to allow him to go on national, you know, news and MSNBC and CNN and just, you know, spew his Trump deranged analysis, right? Yeah, he was a useful tool. So that's why the Biden DOJ let him slide, right? They knew he committed a crime. They was just like, you know, he's a useful pawn, right? We want to keep him out of jail. So yeah, to answer that question, they found the same thing that the Biden administration found. It's just that the Biden DOJ chose not to go after him because, again, he's useful for going after Trump.
A long time, there have been questions about whether he had mishandled classified information, whether leaked information to reporters, put things in the book that he shouldn't have. He was tasked with safeguarding our nation's most secret information. And the question was, did he share it in a way? Did he hoard the information in a way? What exactly happened? It appears, according to the warrants, warrants that we saw, that it actually related to a hack of his AOL account. So the question was he typing out drafts of things in his AOL account? There had been some reporting that he was almost keeping a running diary while working in the White House.
Every day, maybe. Yeah.
That would be quite serious if, in fact, that's what he's indicted for.
And he was posting this on AOL. And it's interesting, right? Because
or keeping drafts, like we all do, except this was with classified information, at least according
to... Yeah, and then sending it to his family members, right? Which, again, is also a big no-no. So, again, it's crazy how this dude was so careless, but yet he's judging others. Again, it's almost as if every accusation is an admission, right? Everything they accuse Republicans are doing, Trump are doing, right? And, again, in John Bolton's case, he's a never Trump Republican, I believe. So, whatever, right? Whatever they accuse Trump of doing, that's what they're doing, right? They're doing that. And it's even worse, right? It's way worse. They're guilty of everything they accuse everybody else of being guilty of. That's exactly what's going on here. Wow. Wow.
to prosecutors, that's what we think this is about.
And you would think if the allegations are true, he would have known better, because John Bolton is not somebody who came from the business world or from the MAGA world. He had been in the White House and public life almost his entire adult life.
Ding, 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 ding. Right? Ding, 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 ding. That's the most important point about this. This good dude has been involved with national security his whole life. Like, that's his thing. And for whatever reason, right, he thought that this would be a good idea, that he would be able to get away with this. But again, it's the same reason that Hillary was doing what she was doing, right? These people really do believe that, hey, you know, we are above the law, and that we don't have to worry about facing accountability for what we do, because, hey, we don't feel like anybody's ever going to go after us, right? They were used to the politicians, the corrupt politicians, protecting themselves, right? Until the politicians decided, you know what? We're going to go after Trump. We're going to make an exception for Trump because we hate him, so we're going to go after him. And now they've opened up a can of worms where now all of these politicians are being held accountable, right? Now all of them are going to start to be held accountable for their crimes, because they decided that, you know, we're going to go after Trump for things that we would have never went after anybody else for, Democrat or Republican. But because it's Trump, we're opening up Pandora's box. And that's where we're at.
Ambassador.
The Reagan administration, the first Bush administration, he worked for President Trump, State Department. They worked in the UN. I mean, he had kind of been all around. He had been around the block, so he would know these things.
Absolutely.
But you can also be careless, and if you are careless, if the allegations are true, sometimes they can be criminal.
Well, look, when you occupy a position like National Security Advisor, you actually sign a document saying that you're going to safeguard your secrets. You're going to actually keep things safe. You're going to keep them in a secure location. And so he certainly knew. The question is whether any of the material we were talking about was actually classified. He has maintained for years that nothing in his book was classified. He said that he got a waiver.
He got it reviewed, and that's the process.
He got it reviewed, but there were lengthy negotiations. Remember, the president actually sued to try to get his book stopped before it was published. Wasn't successful, but we will have to see what the indictment actually charges.
I want to bring in NBC News.
So let's actually dive deeper into what's in this indictment of Mr. Bolton here.
Our other top story tonight, former Trump administration National Security Advisor John Bolton is facing federal charges over alleged mishandling of classified information. The indictment was handed down a short time ago. Correspondent David Spunt has breaking details tonight. Good evening, David.
John, good evening, or Brett, good evening. The former Ambassador John Bolton, that's why I said John, facing these 18 counts in this indictment after a Maryland grand jury decided he should face charges related to his alleged retention and transmission of classified documents. His own attorney, Brett, admitted that he kept some of these classified documents. Bolton charged not only with keeping top secret classified information, but sharing it with family members. The Justice Department says Bolton sent diary-like entries about his workdays at the White House and shared information classified up to the top secret SCI level, the highest level, and shared them on messaging apps and personal AOL and Google email accounts. Prosecutors, Brett, seen leaving the federal court after the indictment, have been probing Bolton since the Biden administration. President Trump reacting in real time to the indictment from the Oval Office, where Bolton used to frequent.
I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
Case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes.
We were there as FBI agents raided Bolton's Maryland home and Washington, D.C. office in August. Agents were looking for classified documents. His attorney, Abby Lowell, telling Fox News the following just within the last half an hour. These charges stem from portions of Bolton's personal diaries over his 45-year career, records that are unclassified, shared only with his immediate family and known to the FBI as far back as 2021. Like many public officials throughout history, Bolton kept diaries. That is not a crime. We look forward to proving that once again, Ambassador Bolton did not unlawfully share or store any information. Here's Bolton, though, Brett, in 2023 responding to a question about FBI raids on former President Trump's property and President Biden's Delaware home with classified documents. Watch.
It sets a bad example for the thousands of other people in the federal bureaucracy who have security clearances, because if the people at the top can be casual about it and then get away with it, that is not a good lesson to teach.
Bolton almost 3 years ago. No word yet, Brett, on his first court appearance.
Okay, well,
so let's read more here about how this went down. Bolton was investigated under the Espionage Act, a 1917 law that has taken on an outsized role in American politics in recent decades, as investigators have pursued similar cases against high-profile officials or candidates. While the Bolton indictment contains an expansive evidentiary explanation, it remains unclear if the offenses outlined would have warranted an indictment, much less fast-track charges, if Trump had not publicly singled out Bolton for punishment. Yeah, so this is Cope right here from the New York Times, right? This is Cope from the so-called Justice Department and FBI reporter, right? But again, just like you saw MSNBC and on CNN, the Cope is only going to carry them so far when they realize that, you know, this is pretty strong, right? This is pretty strong. John Bolton's lawyer, Abbe Lowell, said in a written statement that the facts of the case were investigated and resolved years ago. Bolton, like many public officials, Lowell added, quote, kept diaries. That is not a crime. Those diaries, Lowell said, were unclassified records that were shared, quote, only with his immediate family and known to the FBI as far back as 2021. The 26-page indictment said that Bolton's descriptions of where he had learned information often showed that he knew he was describing carefully guarded government secrets. According to the court document, one note written by Bolton began, quote, the intel briefer said, quote, another said, quote, while in the situation room, I learned, wow, this guy's an idiot, right? This guy's a full-blown idiot. Like, bruh, imagine, again, you spent your whole life being a national security guy, right? You talk about this stuff for a living. Okay, you cover this stuff for a living. You do this for a living. And you're making super basic mistakes like, you know, writing on an unsecured email server that, you know, you learned about X, Y, and Z in the information room or the situation room, right? Doing some type of intel briefer. Like, bruh, come on. Come on. He's telling on, he ratted on himself. John Bolton's emails were later hacked by someone associated with the government of Iran. The indictment said, wow, again, just even more sloppiness. One surreal section of the indictment describes how the hacker taunted Bolton, sending him a message on July 25th, 2021 that threatened to make the FBI aware of the leaked content. The hacker went on to declare, quote, this could be the biggest scandal since Hillary's emails were leaked, but this time on the GOP side. No, not really. I mean, not really. I guess kind of, but not really, okay? Contact me before it's too late. A representative for Bolton forwarded the email to the FBI. Yeah, so, yeah, that's what you have going on here. Just in case any of you guys are wondering, John Bolton, if convicted on everything and given the maximum penalty, he's facing 180 years in prison, right? 180 years, okay? Life. But most likely, we're talking about 8 to 15 years, okay? The guy's already old as hell, so, I mean, you know, 8 to 15 years would be devastating for a guy like this, okay? And if he ends up pleading guilty or is convicted on lower counts or fewer counts, then who knows? Maybe 2 to 5 years, okay? Regardless, though, you know, this is just another example of how nobody's above the law. And people really shouldn't be boo-hoo, whining, crying about it because they told us that if you committed a crime, then you should be held accountable. This is what they said about President Trump. And they have to now live in that reality. And Democrats, never-Trumpers, don't like living in that reality, okay? They don't like living up to the standards that they hold other people to. They can't stand anything more than having to live up to their own standards. And that's what's happening here with John Bolton. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.